Well, this is the first of two commentaries that I'll be doing today. This one going live right now, another commentary which will be coming a little bit later this afternoon, probably more around evening dinner time. But I wanted to jump right on here and get this one covered today. Liberals are really good at do as I say, but not as I do. In other words, they want to take on all of these so called projects as long as they personally don't have to get their hands dirty. They love to virtue signal. It was like watching those politicians, in particular in Portland 2 summers ago during the George Floyd riots, talking about defunding the police. Yet, all of them had private security. They were council members of the city council that they were spending taxpayer money on providing them security while wanting to cut the security for the actual citizens paying the taxes to provide them with private security. Now that's kind of how that works. Rules are for thee, not for me. How many blue governors and mayors were caught after putting absolute draconian mandates and lockdowns on place of their citizenry, were then caught in places like Florida and even Mexico partying like it was 2018, unmasked, everything normal, no social distancing, etc., etc., etc. Because again, rules are for thee, not for me. That's the mindset. You know, a lot of people feel that we are in a cultural war right now. And there is some truth to that, but the cultural war is really being waged as a diversion. Let me say that again, especially my conservative friends, listen to what I'm telling you. The cultural war is really a diversion. It's a way to keep us at each other. Keep the left fighting the right, conservative fighting the liberal, the Democrat fighting the Republican, among the people. Among the actual establishment career politicians, the people in power, the oligarch, deep state swamp, whatever term you want to give it, they're not having cultural wars. This is really class warfare. It's not about left versus right, it's about right versus wrong. It's not about conservative versus liberal, Democrat versus Republican. It's about them, the ruling elite, the ruling class, versus us. That's really what's happening in this country. And they use the cultural stuff as a way to keep you and I fighting with each other. They will throw gas on that fire. You'll have some that will come out and take the conservative talking points, like Lindsey Graham. If you think he really cares about life and life in the womb, and now all of a sudden, right before midterms, he decides to go ahead and sabotage the red wave by making this an issue that, as things were beginning to calm down after the leak of the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision, and he comes out and says, when we take power, we're going to make abortion illegal across the nation after 15 weeks. Now, again, I am unashamedly pro-life. But my issue with Lindsey Graham, he's not doing this because he's pro-life. He's doing this because he's pro-establishment. See, the establishment guys don't care about that little letter, R or D, Republican or Democrat. What they care about is, are you part of the chosen? Are you part of the ruling elite that you get to stay there year after year, decade after decade, and wield your power and become a millionaire, billionaire, and all of the things that you create for other people to live by, you yourself are exempt from? See, Lindsey Graham, for all of his so-called talk about being for Donald Trump, he's another one of those stab you in the back kind of guys. You know, I have no use for a witness protection Romney, but I'll at least say this, and I'm sure even Donald Trump would agree with me. at least Donald Trump knew where he stood with Mitt Romney. He understood that he was not a friend, he was not an ally, he was not a support. And so, Donald Trump could see that, mark that, and know that. It's really hard when you got these people coming, putting their arm around you and say, Mr. President, I'm with you, as they're knifing you in the back. Isn't that right, Mike Pence? And Lindsey Graham is one of those guys as well. And he is worried that a bunch of Trumplicans, non-selected, non-chosen, haven't done the proper vetting, which means pay homage and money to the mothership party, willing to do the status quo because these candidates are the genuine outsiders. We now have Lindsey Graham doing everything he can to stop the red wave by actually propagating a position that he knows will absolutely rile the left and motivate them to vote in record numbers to stop what Lindsey Graham is talking about. Bum, ba-dum, bum. You following this? We got Trader Gowdy, who's got his own show now. They're over there on Fopi News, formerly known as Fox News. These lying weasels who they see themselves in this elite class of rulers. You are the worker bees, you are the peasants, you will do as you're told. And they have to make sure, despite their sparring with the White House over taxes, at the end of the day, they're all on the same team. They are two sides of the same coin. There's not a nickel's worth of difference between any of them. And they can't have more Trumplicans getting in there, because then all of a sudden they lose, what's the word I want? Control. And we, the people, actually have power again. And that's a big no, nay, nay. So now we have Governors Abbott and DeSantis who are really sticking it to the Democrats and their whole do as I say, not as I do. They're bleeding hearts for what we will call in-between homes. We don't want to call them homeless. That's cruel. That's insensitive. Individuals who are in between homes because of substance abuse. Let's just put it what it is. Drug addicts who can't keep a job, lost their families, and now live in garbage bags on the street. They will talk no ends about taxing the rich to pay their fair share so that we can have drug rehab programs and we can have counseling and we can have halfway houses and yada, 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 yada. Where they don't want any of that stuff is in their gated communities. And these are white liberals who will talk ad nauseum about people of color, welcoming everybody. I promise you, at Martha's Vineyard, there'll be no drag festivals touring for the 5-year-olds of the white liberal elites there. But they'll thrust all of that on us, create upheaval among us, create culture war among us, burden us with funding and financing all of this illegal immigration that's taking place, while they live in their safe gated communities away from all of it, decrying, let them eat cake. So Governor Abbott sent some busloads of migrants to Vice President Harris's house, the residence in Washington, D.C. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But I got to admit, Ron DeSantis has gone one better. He put 50 illegals on planes and dropped them off in Martha's Vineyard. I love it. I love it. I love it. You understand how stuck up in the air you have to be accepted and welcome into Martha's Vineyard? I promise you, there's not even any quote-unquote upper middle class in Martha's Vineyard. You've got to be a certified, serious millionaire to live there. And then they judge one another by how many millions do you have. Oh, you're just a millionaire. You just basically crossed the threshold at a million or two a year. Oh, you live over here in the Martha Vineyard slum area. I mean, this is how these people think. These people live in these ginormous homes. Why don't they take some of these illegals in? They declare themselves as sanctuary cities, sanctuary places where it encouraged this illegal behavior. And then I love it. They will come out and they will grandstand and say, Governor DeSantis, Governor Abbott, these men are terrible Christians. How could they just drop these people off? I don't know. Dropping people off in the most expensive zip code in the United States, which is surrounded by absolute opulent wealth. Doesn't sound so bad to me. I mean, I could turn that on Obama Biden and say, what kind of Christian is he? He's got people living in cages. Oops, I'm sorry. They switched that out for plexiglass. He's got people living in plexiglass, wrapping up in aluminum foil blankets, drinking out of a toilet. Well, it's like a sink toilet combo thing. You know why? Because it's overcrowded. They're putting 12 to 20 people in a single room together. What's Christian about that? Notice how all of a sudden AOC isn't doing any photo ops down there anymore. Why, when Donald Trump did it, because he inherited that system from Barack Obama, it was the end of democracy. But now, all of a sudden, that Obama Biden is simply continuing on with what Barack Obama started. It's all cool. It's all good. It's all fine. It's fine. But don't you dare bring those people, sounds a little racist to me, don't you bring those people to New York, San Francisco, Martha's Vineyard, Chicago. You know, Lori Lightweight got 300 migrants and went ballistic. They're politicizing that. These border towns, Arizona, Texas, are seeing 5,000 to 10,000 people a day pouring in. And you don't want to do your fair share. Isn't that right, Elizabeth Warren? Isn't that one of your favorite little buzzwords? You don't want to do your fair share there, lightweight up in Chicago, and help 300 of the people that you said, bring us your poor, your huddled masses. Remember when Donald Trump was absolutely shredded by the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media that his border agents were literally ripping the children away from the adults who brought them here and traumatizing them. And he was trying to explain, wait a minute, time out. We have to figure out if these people that brought them here are even their parents. They don't have any proper identification. We don't know. This could be a coyote bringing them in. This could be a sex trafficker bringing them in. And he was excoriated, and the children were reunited with the adults, and everything was wonderful. And under Obama Biden, it's catch and release, and off into America they go, and they never come back for their court hearings. And you know why? Because those kids are being pimped out on the dark alleys and in the dark neighborhoods of this country, and they are serving as slave labor in the black market for slave labor in this country, and they will be dead before they ever reach their teenage years. That's the absolute truth. And this is the utopia that the liberals want you and I to deal with, but they're not going to deal with it. And if we say anything, yeah. But now, who are the ones with the prejudice issues? They don't want them in their town. You know, it's like these green energy people, you know, lecturing all of us ad nauseum on the need for electric cars and windmills and solar panels. And then you look at the small little factories they personally live in, these mansions with, 35 rooms that put out more carbon footprint than a small factory in Indonesia. And if all of a sudden they were to look out their balcony and across the valley on the little mountain that they like to sit at in the evening and have a latte and perhaps a fine, elegant $25 cigar, they're going to put a windmill there that will block my vision. And they immediately swoop into action and create legislation and bureaucracy why that windmill can't go there. See, they want all of this stuff, but they want you and I, we're going to deal with it. By the way, I guarantee you, these people that are really pushing all of this green energy bullhot, they will always have gas-powered vehicles, high-performance vehicles, the latest and the greatest of toys and appliances. It's kind of like old Soviet Russia, where the people stood in line for hours just to get staples from the supermarket. Boy, isn't that sounding familiar. But yet, all of the people who are part of the Russian government, they had the best of everything. You know, that communism, it's all about, we're gonna level the playing field and make it equal for everybody. I learned a long time ago, when somebody says we're gonna make it fair for everybody, they're automatically going to make it unfair for somebody else. Every time. Every time. So, as Ron DeSantis, sends 50 up to Martha's Vineyard, and the media is in meltdown mode. And of course, they want to portray him as another Donald Trump, and they're trying to get people to hate him and turn on him. I lived in Florida for 9 years. I had 2 of my children lived for several years in Jacksonville, Florida. Even after my wife and I left Florida, they lived in Jacksonville, Florida. My daughter got married. She and her husband stayed in Jacksonville for several months, and now they have relocated, of all places, to New York City. I had a son who was on staff at a church in Jacksonville. He's now on staff at a church in Washington, D.C. Yeah, I'm spreading the Bramerism out. But I've been to Jacksonville many times. Beautiful city. It's a big city. People don't realize that Jacksonville, Florida, landmass-wise, is actually one of the largest cities in the country. I didn't say it had the biggest population, but as far as landmass, it is considered the actual city limits of Jacksonville. They are one of the biggest in the nation, and they are the biggest in Florida. Yes, I know Miami has a bigger population, but it's a bigger population confined in a smaller area. Just like New York City has the biggest population of our metro cities, but yet there are other metro cities in this country that have more space, more real estate, more property. So Jacksonville, beautiful city. It really is. Enjoy going there, spend a lot of time there. Used to vacation just south of Jacksonville, places like St. Augustine, and I love, despite its cheesiness, Daytona Beach. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Did the whole thing, the boardwalk, the pier, dealt with the interesting characters who live there, and it was just, we enjoyed that whole experience. Absolutely loved every minute of it. But Governor DeSantis had a real problem on his hands. He was getting the phone calls daily from the mayor of Jacksonville saying, every time I turn around, there's another 3,000 migrants that show up here. And I've got teachers now that have got classes of 40 and 50 kids who don't speak English. So Ron DeSantis put 50 of them on a plane and sent them to Martha's Vineyard, and everybody is going into meltdown mode. By the way, you do notice that Florida is not a, quote, border state. So unless they're swimming across from Cuba, which they're not, they're being brought in planes and buses by the Biden administration to Florida. And now Governor DeSantis is saying, no. You're going to Martha's Vineyard. Next stop, Delaware. Let's see, who's from Delaware? That would be old Amtrak Joe himself. Yes, Beijing Biden. I can't wait for the news coverage of the buses that pull up outside of Joe Biden's Delaware home. Oh, baby! Now, will old Joe go out there and welcome them and give them cupcakes and, y'all come on in? Here's the thing. I think this is resonating with the American people, but not the way the media and the Democrats and the libloons would like. I think America is looking at this and saying, well, yeah, if you want all these people here, why don't you take care of them? Bum, ba-dum, bum. And amazing, there are always people in your life that know exactly how to tell you what to do, what you ought to be doing in your marriage, what you ought to be doing in raising your kids, what you ought to be doing in investing your money in. And yet they themselves are personal train wrecks in those very areas that they're an expert in telling you what to do. I think the American people really are having an epiphany, and they're looking around and they're saying, you know, we really do have this problem, and these governors have been screaming for years, help, help, help. And now you declared yourself sanctuary cities because you hated Donald Trump and you didn't want these people deported, but now you don't want them in your so-called sanctuary cities. And they know why. A lot of these people are just what Donald Trump said. They're criminals. A lot of these countries, this is a great way for them to get rid of the people they don't want and are a drain and a burden on them. Send them to America. And I am still floored. I was watching the buses unload today on live television out in front of the vice president's residence at the Naval Observatory. And they're wearing designer t-shirts. They got nice jeans on, name brand sneakers, and every single one of them had cell phones. And I don't mean like flip phones, like a burner, a cheap burner you would buy and have to, you know, put $20 to buy a few minutes on. I thought these were, you know, poverty-stricken people. You know, the way it gets described by Biden and the lying media, why these people ought to be like something, you know, they ought to look like refugees with, you know, basically wearing rags, and that is not at all what any of these people look like. The Democrat plan for all of this was that by bringing and allowing all those people to come, they would assimilate as far as they would be allowed to vote, and they would vote Democrat. And the funny thing is, now that they are, many of them have assimilated over the past 20, 30 years, a lot of them are voting conservative. Well, Shazam, Batman. Why is that? Well, now that they're here and living the American dream, they're looking around, they're saying, I can't afford to pay for all these other people to come. Winston Churchill once said, if you're not a liberal when you're a young man, you don't have a heart. But if you're not a conservative, by the time you're an old man, you don't have a brain. So, good job to Governors Abbott and DeSantis. It's absolutely fun to watch the liberal meltdown, hysteria, and hypocrisy for all to see.